Well, the Great Flood of 2016 has impacted the bee population as well. One beekeeper in DeSoto Parish lost nearly a third of his honeybees as a direct result of flooding. As TWILA's Sabine shows us, many row crop producers rely on pollination from honeybees. When more than 21 inches of rain washes away hives, those crops could be adversely impacted for several months.
This was one of my best yards, and it's been completely wiped out.
DeSoto Parish beekeeper Randy Fair literally looks over the remains of about a dozen or so honeybee hives washed out by more than 21 inches of rain. Fair shared several pictures of honeybee sites washed away by floodwater. He says nearly a third of his honeybees have disappeared because of high water.
The rain came so fast, all the creeks rose so fast, I didn't have time to get in and move the bees, partially because it wasn't the river wasn't going to get me. And I had no idea that all the creeks and the pastures were just going to flood as quick as they did.
Extensive, long-term flooding of pastures like this one has killed much of the clover that grows in cattle pastures in this area. Clover is a major source of pollen for honeybees. As a result, Fair now has the same challenge as cattle producers here. He has to secure an alternative food source for his honeybees.
What people aren't realizing, my honeybees and other bees depend on the floral sources of those pastures for their food, for them to survive, and to provide me with honey for my business. The clover crop for this year is going to be gone. That's my spring honey flow.
The clover may be gone, but Fair looks after what remains in order to rebuild. White buckets of sugar water supplement honeybee hives as the bees work to restore their broodstock lost in the flood.
Because I've lost so many colonies, I've bought a bunch of queens and I'm making up what we call a nuke or a nucleus hive, which is actually like a half of a hive, and I'm busting down my better hives to make 4, and that's what we've got behind me.
Looking ahead, Fair's honeybees have started their own clean out of drowned bees and debris. Fair marvels at their resilience.
Some of the hives that I've opened up, that both boxes have been in the water, and in the top corner there'll be a handful of bees and a queen. She's laying eggs, and if you come back 2 or 3 days later, they will have cleaned out a little bit more of that corner, and she's laying eggs. They're trying to survive, and they will. But for a producer of honey, they're not going to produce the honey I need to sell to keep my business afloat.
Fair explained that while he has replaced many of the queens that he lost as a result of the flood, there is no guarantee that the 80-plus hives washed away by floodwater will be replaced. In fact, because the clover has been killed because of the flood, it may be as long as a year before his honeybees return to full production. And guys, if you'd like to see how extensive the damage is to Randy's honeybee operation, you can always log on to our website at twilatv.org.
I know he sent you a bunch of photos of the damage, but for you, it's probably a little more personal. I mean, you and Randy were both in the same ag leadership class. Y'all traveled to South Africa together. What's it like going to cover one of your friends, someone you know personally, going through such a disaster?
Avery, I can tell you it's tough. I am a huge fan of Randy and his honeybee operation, and to see so many bees destroyed and so much of his infrastructure gone, I mean, literally just gone. It's tough to watch him, but you know, Randy and I are good friends, and like his bees, he's very resilient.
Well, I appreciate you covering his story for us. Thank you very much, Sabine.
Well, still to come on TWILA, spring has sprung online. We give you spring fever after the break.
But first, Commissioner Mike Strain takes to the front line of the budget battle at the Louisiana State Capitol. Next.